Why did Darth Vader seem so weak in his fight against Luke on the second Death Star? Greetings Acolytes, and welcome back to the archives. We know Darth Vader as being one of the most capable fighters and strongest force wielders in lore despite the limitations of his armor. The way he showcases his abilities at the height of the Empire sees him effortlessly lift AT-STs and pull entire ships back to the ground. As a duelist, we've made exhaustive analysis of his form and how he used all of his past experiences and failures with Dooku and Obi-Wan to craft one of the most invincible lightsaber styles that have ever existed. He was the bane for the rebellion and the worst nightmare of any Jedi who happened to still be alive following the Great Purge. But in the days of Return of the Jedi, there is a sharp decline in Vader's prowess. In his duel with Luke at the climax of Return of the Jedi, he struggles to properly fight against his own son. And in the end, when the Jedi Fury is unleashed, Vader is completely at Luke's mercy, apparently unable to draw from the dark side himself to meet the savagery of the blows. So why is this? How could Vader have gotten so weak in only 1 year since their last meeting in Cloud City? And what events happened that made Vader so weak in Return of the Jedi? Well, it's time to open a holocron and discover the mystery. Luke Skywalker had truly grown exponentially more powerful in the last year between the events of Cloud City and the Battle of Endor. This is extremely true. The current canon comics are exploring all of the things that Luke did in that period of time, and how his powers were rapidly growing now that he had more of a familiarity with the Force and the Jedi way. But even then, Luke was not nearly at the level required to actually best Vader in a fair fight. When talking about Vader's condition at this point, there are exactly 3 factors that we need to consider. The first of which many are quick to point out, which is that Vader was holding back against Luke. It was made very clear that Palpatine didn't want Luke dead, he just needed him to be nudged into the dark side. He wanted the father and the son to duel for who would remain at his side, and by that point, he was pretty much done with Vader, and decided to take on a younger, far more powerful apprentice. But of course, Vader was aware of Palpatine's game, and had it in his mind that he would turn his son to the dark side, and take him as his own apprentice, finally taking the revenge that he wanted against Sidious. Of course, Vader wanted to put the pressure on without going all out as to not damage the ultimate prize. But there's one thing that shoots a massive hole in this being the only reason why Vader was so weak. And that is the kick. While it seems insignificant, the clean side kick that Luke lands on Vader to send him tumbling down the stairwell never should have occurred. What we mean is that if Vader was truly holding back as many claim, then he still would have the knowledge to keep his defenses up, and not allow Luke to break his guard and kick him like that. It's just never been done to Vader before in his prime. Never. Even if he was willing to draw out Luke's aggression, it is not believable that he would allow himself to be thrown down the stairs in such a humiliating fashion. Vader has a great deal of pride, especially as a warrior. The only acceptable answer is that Luke landed that kick through his own skill and power. Now, of course, this is not to say that Luke did this easily. It's clear that even though Vader was not 100%, Luke is still having to exert a lot of effort to keep up with him. However, his father is as well. There is a clear sluggishness with Vader as he tries to pin Luke down and get him out of the defense. This leads us to our next reason. Vader's condition has vastly deteriorated from how he used to be, despite being only 45 years old. Vader's age has surpassed him due to his injuries and the immense amount of physical strain that his suit puts on his ailing body. While the suit keeps him alive, it is heavy, cumbersome, full of invasive cybernetic machinery, tearing away at his necrotic flesh every single day. The breathing apparatus pumps oxygen into his lungs, but those damaged organs can only take so much. While his limbs may be fine, it's outdated. It's his torso that needs to be worried about. The current canon Vader comics are exploring his adventures in the years 3 to 4 ABY. From what we've seen so far in the comics, he doesn't slow down at all, especially after the events of Bespin, but is actually put through more strenuous torture and damaging activity, which includes nearly dying on several occasions and passing right through a machine which is supposed to destroy organic material. Vader only survived this last one because of his armor. But the point remains that while his cybernetics are still functioning, Vader's organic body is falling apart. Much like the ancient Sith Darth Sion, Vader could have drawn upon the dark side to keep himself sustained for a long period of time. But as for the duel with Luke, the dark side was not Vader's ally here. The entire reason for the holocron, the last 2 factors can be argued with and explained away. But even if neither of them existed, this single fact would. The final reason Vader is so weak against Luke is because of the clear conflict. But what exactly does this do? Despite how much Vader tries to deny it and say that there is no hope for him, he is deeply conflicted in a way that he has never been. Luke is showing him love and an honest willingness to bring him back. Many have tried and many have failed. Luke had no greater prior knowledge of what he had done or who he was, and because of that, he didn't hold his sins to him. Luke wanted to forgive his father even after losing his own hand and watching his friends die in the war against the Empire. Vader said that once Obi-Wan thought as he did, but Luke's belief in Anakin was not like Obi-Wan's. Obi-Wan wanted to believe in the chosen one that he had trained in the ways of the Jedi. Luke, though, chose to believe in the man behind that power. Luke wanted his father. Vader had long since been denied such a father figure, and now he had the choice to be one for Luke and find redemption. A deep conflict stirred within Vader's soul the very first time Vader was weakening, because something important to consider is that as Vader grows weaker, Anakin Skywalker grows in power. For the first time in 2 decades, clouds had begun to part, and a ray of light was shining through, a ray that Vader was unable to choke out. When a Darksider becomes conflicted in their feelings, the dark side of the Force will essentially flee from their body. Only the purest hatred, passion, suffering, and devotion to the dark side will yield the power that one is seeking. When the light is introduced, or if there is a second guessing to the choices, the user will feel weak. Far weaker than if they had just chosen one or the other. In a horrific manner, if a Darksider has conflict, then they are almost cut off from the Force, the same way a Jedi is cut off when they feel fear. Dunmok traditionally weaponizes words and insults to instill this fear and insecurity in Jedi so that it unbalances them. However, Luke later admitted to using a light side spin on this and the reverse effect on Darth Vader, showing him love and instilling words of hope and kindness, of redemption. Without the ability to draw on the dark side, all of the strength and power that made Vader infamous was gone. His speed and precision fell. He lacked control. He couldn't even sustain his own body to properly listen to commands, thus causing him to break down within the very suit of armor. It's no wonder that he was completely incapable of standing up to Luke's Jedi fury, and it seems odd that whenever they get back to the walkway, Vader is dodging Luke's blows and grasps on the railing, almost falling to the floor. But in that moment, he had literally reached his end. His body was not responding. He had no time to recover, and that final darkside assault from Luke was all it took. Vader was staying down. But anyway, my friends, these were the reasons why Vader was so incredibly weak in Return of the Jedi. It's difficult to exactly say how far below the standard Vader was here, but let's try and put it into numbers. Let's say that Vader in his prime is 100%, being 100% of Vader's typical power within his suit, not Anakin's prime. By A New Hope, Vader would be around 70% of his prime. This is after many years of monotonous Imperial life with no one to really challenge him or get his fire going. But that changes when he kills Obi-Wan and becomes obsessed with hunting the boy that destroyed the Death Star in Luke. His passion is reignited, and we would say that his power pops back up to around 80%, peaking at around 85 to 90% after Cloud City. But after a year from that point, his physical condition deteriorates drastically as his health goes downhill due to all of the strenuous activity of the war, as well as Palpatine putting him through trials. Then we get to the Battle of Endor, where he is very conflicted by his son. Both of these things combined, we would estimate that Vader's power nosedives to around 60% or maybe even lower than his prime. By the time Luke beats Vader down and hacks his arm off, we can confidently say that he's operating at less than half his normal efficiency. Now, these numbers are purely guesstimates based on observations and environmental and internal factors, but they should be discussed by you in the comments. So, let us know, have you ever wondered why Vader was so weak in Return of the Jedi, and all the factors that caused Luke to be able to beat him? As always, my friends and fellow acolytes of the Force, thank you so much for visiting the archives as we opened up another holocron today, and I hope you're having an amazing one.